Have you ever wondered why King's Cross Station is directly over the road from St Pancras Station? The reasoning is very sound. It's beer. King's Cross was the biggest station in the UK when it opened in 1852 as the terminus of the Great Northern Railway. St Pancras was built by Great Midland Railway in 1868, in part to bring India Pale Ale down from Burton-on-Trent to London. That's right, in the mid-1800s Burton was the brewing powerhouse of the world, and its breweries like Allsop and Bass were super famous for their hoppy, pale and dry IPAs. Thousands and thousands of barrels of which needed to get to London to be shipped around the empire. Until Great Midland Railway came along, that took 3 weeks by barge. So seizing the opportunity, Great Midland Railway signed a deal with Bass and built a train station. Not only a train station, but a train station specifically designed to handle thousands of barrels of beer. And that train station is this stop-staying train station. Which is why after bridging Regent's Canal, St Pancras trains stay on the first floor. Because underneath, where you now drink insipid coffee and buy last-minute gifts for people you don't really know or like, was a beer warehouse, which exactly mirrored the Bass warehouse in Burton to help with deliveries to its London depot on the other side of Regent's Canal, leaving through the big horse and dray-sized arches where you might catch a cab unless you've heard of Uber. If you want to learn more about the incredible ways that beer built the world, buy my book, The Meaning of Beer, out now. Good evening, Beer Geeks. Welcome to the first solo live show I think I've ever done on the Craft Beer channel. I thought I'd start with that video because somehow that has become the biggest thing that the Craft Beer channel has ever done. That short, which I put on Instagram on Monday, is currently about 800,000 views, and you'd have thought, given the topic, given the story, given the joyful expression of history that you don't often get to talk about, these really positive historical moments, you'd have thought that the comments would have reflected that. So it's been a very interesting week to be Jonny Garrett. Firstly, I would say that it is typical of me to put a blatant error in one of the biggest things we've ever done. It happened with our blind taste test of bad macros when I got my scoring system entirely wrong, having said I'm a professional beer judge. And now with this thing, I have called Midland Railway Great Midland Railway just because I got excited. I knew better. The book is correct, but I just decided to call it Great Midland Railway to hype it up. I'm a hype merchant for beer after all. And obviously people have taken exception to that. They've taken exception to my use of the term train station instead of railway station. I've got some cabbies that are very, very annoyed at me because I implied that people use Uber. And it's just been an absolutely wild ride. On the plus side, with 800,000 views, and I just want to say a huge thanks to everybody that has bought the book. This is the current ranking on Amazon of The Meaning of Beer. So I am nearly in the top 100 of all books on Amazon, which is frankly batshit. I did not expect anything like that, nor did my publisher. And I can't thank you enough to everybody that has bought the book, and indeed everybody that will after whatever this turns into, because I have no really strong plan. I'm not going to sit here and say that Brad is usually the planner. That's me. But I thought I would have a bit of an experiment with this one. So we're going to talk about some things from the book. We're going to drink some delicious beers. But you guys have heard enough about the book. You're probably getting a little bit sick of it. You're probably wondering when we'll get back to normal Craft Beer channel procedures. And, well, we're not going to do that for a little while. I'm afraid we've got a little bit more book stuff. Then we've got Christmas, and then we've got Keep Cask Alive. And then Brad and I are hoping to start making some of the stuff that we usually do on the channel. Although the Keep Cask Alive stuff is going to be it's just magical. I've started editing it very recently. I've nearly finished the first episode, and some of the footage, some of the interviews are just we've outdone ourselves. I really think we have, and I really hope that that's going to be true of all 6 episodes that we're putting together. So yeah, welcome to Drink Jonny Dry. I'll be explaining why it's called that and what the concept for this evening is going to be in a little bit. But let's start by digging into the comments and by saying hi to everybody, and a huge thank you for joining me, even though we don't have the main appeal, which is the Brad, who I haven't actually heard from since election day. So I hope everything's fine. Right, let's dig into the comments, see where everybody is. H. Virgil is drinking breakfast out for the morning hours. I hope that's true? Yeah, I hope that's true. I hope you're enjoying a breakfast stout in the morning. Let us know where you are, H. Virgil. Good evening, Mark. 7 a.m. here in Tasmania. Good morning to you. I've been reading Bluey books all day, so I'm going to try and remove the bad Australian accent I do for that. Midday on the West Coast. Happy lunchtime. Received your signed copy. Wait, David, didn't you say you were in Tasmania? Did you get one from my local bookstore sent to Tasmania? If so, that is absolutely incredible. Indeed. Evening, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Mark, glad you loved the book. What's that about making a mistake on the internet to find out the truth? Oh, I don't know, Andy. Is that a saying? I mean, we can dig into the comments. Apparently, the other thing that I've been getting, other than people furious about those things, and also a guy who is adamant that St. Pancras was never on 2 levels until the Eurostar opened, which people are literally sending him blueprints over Google to say, like, no, look. And he's still denying it. Apparently, I look like Harry Kane has shaved his head, which I've never had before. I can't see it. I used to get Mr. Tumnus back when I had hair. And when I was really young, I got the guy that played Frodo, Elijah Wood. Now, I like to think it's like ugly Stanley Tucci. Tour Tap has got the book this week. Not read it yet. North of Swindon. Got a Westleton 12 to keep you company. Lucky you. Yeah, release in America is the 26th of November. So, we've got 10 days. Start the countdown. Thank you very much, Martin. I'm sure there's a lot of people waiting for Santa, Andy. Fuller's Old Winter Ale. Delicious, delicious. Just reached the Munich chapter, so you're about to get a full, 2,000 words on Hitler. You don't have a beer yet, Rich? Come on, let's get it together. It's only in hardback at the moment. The paperback is out end of May. So only in hardback, and the British version is all delicious and golden. And wait, where is it? Here's the American edition. So they are actually quite different sizes, less golden, slightly different font, still shiny though. And that one's, yeah, both hardback and both paperbacks coming out in May next year. Drinking Vampire Appliances by Azvex. I haven't had that one, but Azvex have been impressing me greatly. Drinking coffee at work. That's probably sensible. Working through the world lagers from B&M. Lucky Buddha, Quillums, and Red Peroni. Good Lord. It's wild. There could be a video in all the wacky beers that are ending up in sort of UK discount supermarkets, because some of it I think is excellent, and Brad's always nagging me to do it because he thinks it's excellent, and I'm coming around to the idea, so it might be coming to the Craft Beer channel next year. Eric from Las Vegas, when are you planning on making some homebrew and sharing the beer on the channel? We were supposed to do a homebrew episode in November, but the launching of the book has just swallowed up my entire life. So I didn't manage to do it. It was quite an ambitious homebrew project. It was going to be, I can tell you folk, it was going to be the Now IPA homebrew recipe, finally, 2 years later. And I was also going to barrel age it. So I was going to get a barrel, inoculate it with Brett, and leave it alone with whole flower, Harlequin and stuff, like properly almost do sort of the English IPA kind of vibe. But obviously that would take a couple of months, so I haven't quite managed it yet. But we are on it. Drinking Track Dream Shaper. Thank you, Martin. Same problem here. Too many beers, not enough me. Always the problem. Apparently it's 8 p.m. in Kent. You don't say. Westmile Double. Lots of Belgian beers in the comments. Athletic. Ian, tell me more. Wet, hop, low alcohol IPAs are a thing now in the US. I actually earlier had a low alcohol double decocted Pilsner. So we're starting to take our low alcohol seriously. Why is the USA edition different? Different publishers who have different tastes, different ideas of what books will sell in different locations. So yeah, same illustrator whose name I've forgotten, Alex Michael Kirkham. So yeah, same actual designs, but just different fonts on them. And then obviously within here, it's quite different text at different points. So lots of cultural references that I make in the English version wouldn't work in America. So we had to go through it, edit it, go to the imperial system because Americans are still crazy. All this kind of stuff. Ancient Egyptian ale, as it ties in. Tell me more about that, please. Is that a homebrew or is that you've traveled in time, or not quite sure? So yeah, Caribbean chocolate cake. I will be drinking that. So I should say I'm running an event at the Siren's newish craft beer bar right by the station in Reading next Thursday. If you're about, do come by. 4 beers, 4 beer styles that change the world, and I think some snacks and a talk from me. Tickets are available on the Siren website. And I will also, I'm hoping to do a Siren Caribbean chocolate cake video of some description, but that hasn't quite come together yet. What else have we got from people drinking? I will come back to the questions that I haven't answered super quickly throughout the evening, and please feel free to send questions as and when. There won't be sort of a Q&A because we will be knee deep in some very bad old oxidized beer by then. Andy's got the saying. I think the saying is, if you want to know the truth or how something works, post a mistake on the internet and people love to correct you. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say that's what I did, but no, it was just a genuine mistake. The Midland Railway one was a genuine mistake. I don't think there's any other mistakes in there. It's just that one. Certainly, because this is who I am. When people were like, you can't say train station, you have to say railway station, the former sub-editor in me was immediately like, fairly certain that's nonsense. So I dug into the history, and yeah, train station is as an older phrase in the UK language as railway station. Dates right back to the 1820s when the first steam locomotives went on rail. So these old men can naff off. Right, let's get into this evening. So, firstly, this is the drinking order that I will be doing with you guys. I didn't get a box because I think they all sold out. So I've got what I had in my stash, and we'll be drinking through those. I think I've got 11 lemons. I'm hoping I have. If not, I've got some other delicious Pastore stuff. But we have drunk through quite a few of these beers already in our live show for Love and Beer. So really, this box was about people that haven't already tried those beers getting hold of them. And if you have questions about them or want me to talk about the flavors, the recipes, I am here for that. But I won't necessarily be drinking all of them tonight because of what this night is really about, which is Drink Jonny Dry. So I'm just going to bring up a photo. Maybe I haven't quite managed to upload that photo to our streaming software. One sweet second. While I am loading this up, I want anybody who keeps their beer in any kind of order, who keeps all of their beer cold all year round, anyone who just has any semblance of order in their lives, to look away, because this is the problem that we're going to start solving tonight. So I receive endless freebies, some great, I'm never going to complain about that, some less great. And at some point, they filled up my fridge in my house and the fridge in the studio and my desk and the boxes under my desk. So I went to B&Q and I bought a bigger box, and then that filled up. So there's a box just the other side of the windows here. This is what that box looks like. This photo is handily covering my shame. So in there's over 100 different beers, all of which are beyond their best, and all of which need to be consumed. Sorry, not all of which are beyond their best. All of which are beyond their best before dates. So some of them might still be absolutely delicious and even better than they were fresh. But that's what I want to find out. So my aim is to try and finish that box, maybe finish some of the things that are down here and here, just some Timothy Taylor's English IPA and some Barbarian Lands. Wait, which one was that? Early Rhubarb. Essentially British lambic style beer from Crossover, my locals. And I want to get through as much of these things as I can and get it all back into the studio fridge. So I don't know how far we're going to get today. It depends on how bad these beers are, but this is a choose your own adventure. So I'm going to open the voting straight away so that we can get stuck into it and you guys at home can start to sort this. I did share this on the Discord forum, but I've slightly changed my mind about the format of how we're going to do it. So you'll have to vote again if you did vote in the Discord forum. So what's going to happen is I'm going to send a link to a Google form. You will go into this Google form and in there is one list of beers. And I want you to choose the beer that you want me to drink next. Okay, so you're going to go in there. You don't have to give your email or anything. Just literally vote once for the beer that you want me to drink next. And I will let that vote carry on for sort of the 20, 25 minutes. I'm going to talk about some exciting other things from the book. And then we will get there and I will drink that beer. I will then load another question in once we're drinking that beer as to the next beer. Just so that way people aren't wasting their votes on a beer that's already been consumed, as was the original system. So this is the link. So tinyurl.com/drink-johnny-dry-1, because there's going to be more of these. So if you type that in or click, I don't know, you can click that link, type that in. I'll put it actually in the comments as well, so that you can just copy and paste it from there. There it is. It's in the comments. Go and vote there. And then about 8:45, we will start drinking from that stash, exploring it. You can ask me questions while I'm doing it. And we will hopefully have a great time discovering that some beers can really last and some beers really, really can't. Right, let me just start by saying that if you go to this link, which I'll also put into the comments, you can buy the book, or you can go to Amazon, where it is apparently absolutely flying, and buy the book. I need to get a beer in my glass. I need you to ask me questions if you've got questions about the book. And I'm going to tell you some stories while I drink this beauty. So this was brewed for Love and Beer Festival in September. You'll note some absolutely lovely, cheeky little details that Utopian added, including the sun and clouds behind the hops over there, which is really lovely. Because it was a beer to celebrate that. And this is a smoked dunkel. And I was very excited when they said that this is what they were going to brew, when they collaborated with so I've just seen a comment that I need to come to. Really excited when they said they were going to brew this, because this really suits a lot of the stories from the book and some of the stories that I haven't already told in the endless videos that we have been doing to promote it. And I should say, massive shout out to Bradley for letting me essentially take over the channel to promote the book for the last, what are we up to, 5 weeks, just to address this. This is not something I'd considered. I'm considering it now. If you super chat, can we bypass the voting? I'm going to say yes, but after the first 2 rounds. So we're going to do 2 rounds purely on vote. And then if you want to super chat to ensure I drink something, knock yourself out. Although I reserve the right to refuse if the super chat is a pound or a dollar. Okay, well, I suspect that's the one that's going to win anyway. So we'll come back to that. But if it doesn't win in the first 2 rounds, then yes, Mystery Homebrew will be beer number 3, Ian. I'm sure. I think I know what it is. There's about 4 options it could be. And yes, Andy, it is my own Mystery Homebrew. It will be one of the ones from the channel, because otherwise I've only brewed pale beers in the last 2 or 3 years outside of the channel. I haven't brewed any kind of dark beer for myself in a while. Super chat to chug is a hard no. That's a no. Well, depends on the size of the super chat, but it's probably a hard no. I'm glad you're all you're all getting involved in this. I was worried it was getting a bit OnlyFans in concept, and it's already going down that road. Thank you. Oh, and I'm just bringing it back up again. Right. Okay. So why did I want to pick this beer? So this is a smoked dunkel, and the reason I wanted to talk about this is because this is a really good representation of what pretty much all beers would have been, certainly outside of the UK, until about the 1830s. So as we talk about in the book, the process of kilning really, really changed in the late 1600s in the UK when a mad Cornishman invented the idea of indirect kilning, which is essentially heating up air and blowing it across something, which was basically the fan oven in the 1600s. And that changed the way that we were malting, from doing it over open fire and charring and resulting in dark beer and really smoky beer, to what we'd start to consume today. Probably not as pale as we drink today. That started to happen with Pilsner Urquell. But this would be a much closer example of the kind of things that people were drinking back then. And probably, what strength did they end up at? 4.9. Probably a similar strength of beer as well, although the beers back then would have been a bit sweeter when they were fresh, because the fermentations weren't as efficient. And then if they were aged, or stale, as we used to call them in the UK, once the Brett had kicked in, they'd have been much, much drier and much stronger, and obviously still pretty smoky and dark. This beer, anybody drinking this at home? I'd love to hear. Love to hear if people are drinking this and bought the pack. I think it's really special. I have a case of it down here as well because I thought it was so good. I love that decoction character that brings this caramel and biscuit. And I love the little smokiness that just cleans that up a little bit, stops the decoction from becoming the dominant profile, makes it feel really nicely balanced. And there's a pretty solid kind of nettly hoppiness as well, which, as always, I would dial up. I always want my beers more bitter, but I think it's a really nicely balanced beer that tells a little bit of the history of where beers have come from that people don't necessarily really think about. It's one of my biggest bugbears, as people will know now, that people just, they go, I want my beer to taste like beer, but the beer that they're talking about has probably only existed for about 200 years of the 13,000 years that we know we've been brewing, and it's probably been longer than that. And that was the other story that I wanted to tell that this would lead us to, which is something that actually opens the book. I haven't shown this yet, but this is, so I've been doing endless podcasts of late. So I've been on The Moon Underwater, Something You Should Know, Milk Street, the Brew Lab, so the sister podcast of Brewlosophy. I'm going to be on Think Beer, Drink Beer next week. I'm on the Belgian Smack podcast. I recorded that yesterday. That won't be out until December, though. I'm going to be on the Beer Fridge podcast. Shout out to those guys very soon. Hopefully, I'm going to be on the Pellicle podcast. Seems podcasts are the places to have these big, deep, and meaningfuls about beer. But this is the preparation that I did. I never thought I'd be a mini post-it note person, and I never thought that I would get a mini post-it note and then write the word Hitler on one. But that is what I had to do for this book. So yeah, in this book, it actually starts with pretty much, well, it starts with my dad drinking beer d'or, but then it gets to a story about me in ancient Egypt going into the desert at I'm not at gunpoint, but there's an AK-47 involved. As I go to visit one of the oldest commercial breweries we know of, built 5,000 years ago, 3000 BCE. And it's in Abydos, this mad place in the middle of Egypt, essentially. Like, if you look at the map of Egypt and you look at the Nile coming down, there's like a kink it has, and then it goes straight again. It's just at the top of that kink. So pretty much halfway down the country. It's not actually that far from Luxor, but in Egypt, you have to follow the river, basically, to get there. So it takes about 3.5, 4 hours to get there. On the way up, we went via a place called Dendara, which is just one of the most stunning places I have ever visited. Actually quite a modern temple. I think it wasn't long before the BC switch. So only about 2,000 years old, this particular one. But this is at the outside, and that's me outside it. And then we go in. And this is what you're confronted with. Just some of the most stunning wall art I have ever seen on every single inch. And it would have been, I think, full color back then. It would have been even more resplendent. And actually, a lot of it has been damaged by Christians that came through. Also, vandals who might have been stealing stuff, valuable stuff that was attached to the walls. And also by the fact that apparently, my guide was saying, so much of these discoveries were made sort of half buried or even, well, yeah, half buried or fully buried. And the ones that were half buried, they were actually used as like squats and shelters by people that didn't really understand what it was that they were in. And so actually they think that a lot of the sort of most of the ceilings are very black and it takes a long time to clean them up to see what's behind them. But they think that might have been fires from people that were squatting or sheltering there. This is another photo I took of a wild cat. Actually a very friendly cat who was rocking about in the temple, just enjoying the affections of anybody that would give it anything. So that was Dendara, which is about halfway to Abydos. And then you get to this place, the Temple of Seti, which was started by Seti and then finished by his son Ramesses. And Ramesses II, one of the sort of the most famous kings of Egypt, supposedly ruled for about 60 years, and I think he had 90 children. Like, just biblically impressive, this man, if that's how you define impressive humans. And he finished this temple, and it was built there, obviously, to celebrate the life of King Seti, but also because Abydos, this wild place in the middle of nowhere, is probably the most important religious site in ancient Egypt. It was where the original king, where the original king Narmer of Egypt made his home. It's where his tomb was or is, and it's also where the brewery is that I visit. And that brewery was so significant because although it was as big in batch size as Fuller's, it's in the whole archaeological site of Abydos, there are no cups. They do not find a single. Well, they find one drinking cup on this whole archaeological site, and it's in a fermenter, so it's been dropped by a brewer, not actually used for consumption. And the reason for that is they think all of it was an offer to either the kings or to the gods, so it would have been poured out in the temples. And I tell this story not only because the story of that brewery is incredible and how it worked, and I explain it in full in the book, but also because the infrastructure, the community organizing, the construction techniques, all of these things were, because this was one of the big, probably the first big public works that we know of in ancient Egypt. This is what inspired and started them on the journey towards the pyramids. So the Djoser pyramid, which was earlier sort of a step pyramid, and then eventually the giant pyramids, which now, because of YouTube's algorithm, I've been sent down this wild rabbit hole of people telling me it was a power plant and was never a tomb. And that's clearly fucking nonsense. And I'm not even an archaeologist. But it's been a lot of fun digging into that and then seeing people that aren't just in it for clicks debunking it well and truly. I think Brad and I talked about one of the guys, the Ancient Apocalypse guy, on the podcast. I've learned a lot more about that guy, and he's clearly an incredibly intelligent man, but possibly also a con man, or just there's just one screw loose. Everything else is firing all cylinders, but there's one little screw loose. Anyway, so yeah, this is one of the main stories from the book. It's one of my favorite stories from the book because of the adventure that I go on to try and find the archaeologist who I end up speaking to, and one that I couldn't really find a way to tell on YouTube other than going there. And I've been chatting to the archaeology team that let me go about maybe coming and filming. Permissions are really tricky. It's very expensive to get there. I spent an absolute fortune, very large chunk of my advance to get there. And then I couldn't even see the actual brewery because they weren't allowed to dig it up at that time of year, even though they were hoping to. And that's why I sort of booked the tickets and stuff. So there's a tiny chance we'd head back. And I think that would be such an incredible addition to the craft beer channel. So hopefully aliens made the beer. Yeah, probably. There's a few cool short videos on Google Maps of that location marker. Yeah, I bet there are. I never thought about looking at the Google videos. That's a good thought, Rich. But yeah, do that. Do that. Don't watch me. Go see that, because that's probably a lot of fun to see. It is, I mean, the Abydos, the stuff that is above ground at Abydos is also incredible. And I sort of justified the trip still by saying that, you know, this book is, where do we say it? in the blurb somewhere. Ultimately, it's not a book about how we made beer, but how beer made us. And so I was actually really there to see everything that had been built around this brewery, which includes the early tombs, some incredible. There's one funerary temple, well, not still standing because it definitely came down, but they rebuilt it, and it's a mud brick one called Shinnet Al Zaib, I believe. It looks like a fortress. I think they used it in that SAS TV show that was on recently. I can't remember what it's called, like about the origins of the SAS. They used it for one of the scenes. It's a pretty cool looking building, and I got to see that really up close. And also, obviously, the Temple of Seti. It's like a temple sort of dug into the ground just behind the Temple of Seti that was, I think they were trying to claim that was where, maybe where Ra was born. Now we're into the regions of Egyptology. I can't remember, but like the holiest of holy sites in all of Egypt. So yeah, if you ever go to Luxor, and I highly recommend it, not for the beer or for the food, but for the fact that you'll just literally trip over things that are 5,000 years old and just incredibly special to the origins of humanity. And it is, I'll show you the view from my hotel room. How's that? That was what I woke up to really early in the morning. Every morning at about 7 a.m, the balloons go up. They cost a fortune to go on, but you can go up and see a lot of the archaeological sites from the sky. So those balloons go up every morning with tourists on, and I sort of woke up and watched that happening. And then that evening, actually the day that I got back from Abydos back to Luxor, this was the view of the Nile from the terrace of my hotel, where you could sit and have some drinks. And I sat there with my laptop and typed up all my notes and wrote some anecdotes from the day, including the one where I walk out into the desert with a policeman with a gun, and just had a very, very nice time. Before you think that the Craft Beer Channel's paying me too well, that 5-star hotel costs £62 a night. But it's very faded grandeur. Like, it hasn't changed since the days of Agatha Christie writing Death on the Nile there. It was a real, a very different form of luxury to what you'd expect in a super glitzy hotel that we have in the UK. But yeah, absolutely magical place to go if you're ever considering Egypt, and I would love to go back. Exactly that. I think I took a selfie and sent it to my wife, which in retrospect was a bad move, because I'm trying to make the point that I'm working, but then there was me. I think I was drinking an old-fashioned, watching the sun go down over the Nile. My laptop probably was in shot, but yeah, didn't help my case. So yeah, that was the other story I wanted to tell, and one of my favorite stories from the book that we haven't got to tell on the Craft Beer Channel. And I think there'll be some other stories that we'll get to tell, hopefully. Right, let's have a look at how the votes are doing. We've had 39 responses. Actually, I set this up so I could share the screen. Let's have a look. Hey, there we go. Now you know I'm not lying. So, yeah, Mystery Homebrew. Clearly gonna win this one. But looks like Fuller's and North Coast Old Stock Ale from 2014 is also getting a lot. So that's exciting. I was really hoping you'd all choose the Fox Leap, because I remember that being an absolutely stunning beer, and I would love to try it, but don't let that sway you on the next round. So yeah, we're going to dig into that in a bit. I need to have another beer that's definitely good before we get to that, but I also haven't finished this one. I would love to take any questions from folks if you've got any. Reg, just listen to the audiobook. Recording an audiobook is a wild experience. Like, in a room a quarter of this size, pitch black except for your iPad screen, which you're scrolling on and reading. And I just read for 3 days straight, downing vocal zones and pints of water. I met Kate. Oh my God, what's her name? Kate Windsor now, is it? The wife of our future king. This is how good I am at popular references. Kate Middleton. I didn't meet Kate Middleton. I met Kate Middleton's brother, who was recording the audio for his book about his dog, I think it was. The only thing I really remember is he had piercing eyes. I also nearly met Dermot O'Leary. He finished the day before I arrived, and he bought some very lovely biscuits for the team. So I bought the same biscuits when I left, just to, in their minds, attach me to Dermot. You know, I think it's a good man to be attached to. Does Brad have a similar beer stash? No. Brad has some beers in the fridge, and he collects beers with beautiful labels. And he's got a couple of old beers knocking around that I've sort of given him as I tried to palm my stash off onto him. But no, Brad drinks what he gets. And I'm not going to lie, I used to kind of hoard the freebies, and now I'm realizing my mistake, particularly with the pales and the lagers that are clearly well past their best. And I probably need to just do a ceremonial bucket pour of quite a few of those, which is a real shame. There was a question somewhere up here that I missed. Is the beer that people pine for their nostalgia for the beers they first drank in pubs? Oh, so that's a question for everybody else. That's a lovely question. I'd love to hear that. I used to drink Green King after a shift, so not hugely. I guess that might have helped my love of cask ale. I remember Rockin' Rudolph is a Green King beer. I still pine for that every now and then. God knows what it's actually like, because I was 18 at the time and just didn't like lager, so I drank the cask ales. But yeah, I'd love to hear everybody else's answers to that, what they pine for and what their first beers were, and see if they tally. Mersey Beers, did you let Brad read the book before it was released? If so, did he give you any useful feedback? No, Brad hasn't read the book. Hasn't read any of it, I don't think. Brad's dyslexic, so reading is a bigger task for him. And also, I mean, if he was featuring heavily in the book, I would have definitely given him like a right to reply. He is mentioned, of course, in the book a couple of times, but nothing too heavy. And a lot of the trips were actually without Brad. So we did Belgium and Germany together. Belgium, Germany, and Czech, obviously, Czechia. Otherwise, the American trip, the Svalbard trip, the Copenhagen trip, the China trip, the Egypt trip, everything else was just me. So yeah, I mean, when we made the videos together to promote the book, everything was run by him content-wise to see if he thought it was interesting and valid and would be good for everybody at home to watch. But yeah, otherwise the book has not been read by him. My first beer was Bud Ice. Yeah, I can wait. Which one was Bud Ice? I don't even know what Bud Ice is, but I can see a label. So it's different to Bud Light. I can't quite remember. First beer was either Guinness or Beck's. Heavily underage. Do many underage people go Guinness? For me, maybe it was. I remember being underage and trying to get served, and you'd always try to pick something where you're like, well, no 16-year-old would pick that. So we used to try and order the most random spirits and things to see if they thought they can't be underage. They know what they're talking about. Never worked. What is the weirdest, wildest, most unusual adjunct you've ever tried or seen in a beer? Well, in the fridge over here, I have a beetroot de garde from one of my favorite breweries, McCall's. We could try that later if we fancied it. I haven't actually managed to try it yet. So beetroot's pretty unusual. There was an Avery beer that had mint in, which isn't that wilder an ingredient, but it really is disgusting in beer. So way back at the start of Craft Beer Channel, when we were still doing content for Drinks Tube, they made us try. It was called Instant Regret. It was a 1,000 Scoville. That doesn't sound much. Maybe it was more than that. 10,000 Scovilles. A spicy beer that was clearly just chili extract. I think there was no actual chili real flavor to it other than pain. That was horrendous. I haven't drunk the ones that have had burgers added to them. Just doesn't appeal to me. Money. That's the weirdest adjunct of a beer I've ever had. So this was it was Lervig and maybe it was McKellar, and it's called Big Ass Money Stout. And basically what they wanted to do is they decided they wanted to brew a beer that would sum up Scandinavian or maybe specifically Norwegian culture. And they're like, right, so what is Scandinavia or Norway known for, and they came up with petrol, so it was an imperial stout, dark liquid, frozen pizza. They eat more frozen pizza per capita than any other nation on the world in Norway, I think, Norway or Sweden, and money. So they're rich because of the oil. So they basically, I think they boiled, in the boil, they added, well, they claim they added, I'm not sure there's any footage, that they added money and frozen pizza to the beer. But really, it was, I'm fairly certain that was a lie for marketing. And then it was just a normal giant fucking stout that was like 17%. So I think that was nonsense, but I might be wrong. Have we had an answer to the Bud Ice? Not yet. We'll come to it when we get there. Another fan of Rock and Rudolph. I'll have a pint this Christmas, see if it was as good as I remember. Drank cheap lager as a youngster, which I don't pine over. I still pine over Beer Door. There's a whole chapter on Beer Door and how it defined my teenage years. How much cost a beer in Egypt? So Egyptian beer culture does not exist. There are basically two national brands, Sakara and Stella, weirdly, not the Stella from Belgium, a different Stella. And both were like bang average macro pilsners. I think they were both corn adjuncted lagers. I think Sakara has a stronger version, like a premium version, that maybe was a bit more amber. The beers were, I can't remember exactly how much the beers were, but the cocktails weren't a lot more. So they weren't particularly well priced, but then everything was still incredibly cheap. So I'd say it was probably about 3-4 quid for a bottle of beer, and a cocktail was probably 5 quid. So it was a little bit weird in the UK where a cocktail would be like 15 and a beer would be 5 or 6. So you could get drunk very cheaply in Egypt, but obviously not many people are doing it with you. It's just in the hotels. I think there was, when I was doing research for Luxor, I think there was for a little while like a Belgian bottle shop somewhere, and it was called like Dream Beer or something like that. But I think COVID killed it. So I was a couple of years too late to have anything of interest. So that's why I was drinking an old fashioned while soaking in the sun and bragging to my wife. So that's the answer. It had a cool looking bottle in the 90s. Maybe it's just Bud Light, but they called it Bud Ice because we didn't know what light beer was. Younger's Tartan Special. Can't say I remember that one. J. John says, first beer was Special Brew, still homeless. Whose Wi-Fi are you on then? Okay, Jimbo says, I used to think, what's the fuss with Pilsner Urquell having drank it in Prague, but recently visited Bratislava and had it from tank again. It was unbelievable. So that's probably your palate changed or your expectations changed. Yeah, I mean, so on the Moon is Underwater, the Moon Underwater podcast, I wax lyrical. It's my pick for my draft beer for the pub, because you're building a dream pub in that podcast. I just love it. Even with, and I'm sure any Czech people would be horrified to hear this, even with all the small producers, I would still probably pick Pilsner Urquell. I mean, Unjetitia, maybe, but they don't all have that kind of creamy feel that comes from, from lots of different things. But I think, in particular, that really high finishing gravity that leads to it being sort of starting as what should be a 5% beer, but finishing at 4.4. Have I approached the Rest of History podcast team by doing an episode on beer? I have. I heard nothing back. I haven't. My publisher has. I mean, it is now the second biggest podcast in the US. Like, that is like absolute dream territory if they wanted to talk to me about it. And I suspect from when I started listening to it years ago to now, a bit like the Craft Beer Channel years ago to now, they have professionalized and streamlined and found their voice, and their voice involves fewer and fewer guests. So I'm not sure how many guests they really have now at all. So I'd be surprised if they had somebody like me with very little profile. And I also think that they plan so far ahead now that anything that's timely, so anything that would be to support the launch of a book or something, just doesn't really work for them. So my Mac's just saying it's about to go to sleep. So that's no fun at all. 1 second. That would be an unprofessional end. Oh God, plug in, come on. There we go. So yeah, sadly not. No reply, but that would be, I mean, it's my favorite podcast in the world. It would be my absolute dream. Schlitz. I remember having a very long conversation with John Kimmick at The Alchemist about how much he loves Schlitz. I think specifically the branding of the memories, but maybe also the beer. Jonny, Guinness is because of my moonshining Uncle Luke buying a Guinness for me and my cousin Nathan during the marriage of one of my aunts. Oh, sorry, I've read that very poorly, but it was at a wedding. I believe the one married to the Dunkel drinking chap. I'm lost. Sorry. I'm reading too many comments at the same time. Craft of Thor, did you put that before I started talking about that? Yeah. That was absolutely bonkers. My first beer was Guinness, but only because I was 13 visiting my granddad's village in Ireland for the first time. My dad felt like it was time. I don't think anybody likes their first beer. Did anybody like the first beer they tried? Or was it like when you had coffee and you're like, why do you drink that every day? Here's a great question. What's the number one beer you would categorically not order in a bar, the only other option being a glass of water? I mean, there's a couple. Kronenbourg 1664, wouldn't touch with a barge pole, off the back of the blind taste test. Same with Bush Light, was absolute filth. Desperados would not touch. That's not really beer, to be fair. Yeah, probably those three. I'd probably drink everything else over water. I don't really drink water. I find it very boring and dull, and I'd rather drink. Well, I don't really drink. I don't really drink outside of beer, is what Brad always tells me. I definitely do. I drink a lot of tea and some coffee. Good Lord, there's a metal festival in North Sweden that the red in blood, and it has reindeer blood in it. Not sure about that. Beer Dorich, yes, that was my first beer. I talk about it in the book, my first experience of it, and my brother giving me one, saying don't get drunk, and me having one sip and being like, I'm not touching it. Bud Ice is a stronger version of Budweiser using the ice brewing. Oh shit, so it's ice distilled. Ice distilled Budweiser. Good Lord, I cannot believe that is a thing. Wait, so they freeze distilled it to 6%. I'm not even sure. Well, I guess that was a very controlled freeze to get that higher. Freeze distillation, in case you don't know, is where you have your essentially finished product. You freeze that, and because alcohol has a lower freezing point than water, you can essentially freeze the water, take it out. You're left with a stronger liquid. Yeah. Somehow Greece is beating Egypt. The macro germ styles are actually perfect for Greece. Yeah, I've had some pretty good macro lagers in Greece, and they have a good craft beer scene as well. One I would really enjoy exploring one day. Is there such thing as a bad beer style, or is it just that some styles are harder to pull off? For context, my next beer is a milkshake IPA. Milkshake IPA is the frickin' worst. I don't understand why. Because bitterness and sweetness are completely opposing. Unlike other tastes in our mouth, they don't seem to cancel each other out. They seem to clash horrendously. It's very hard to create balance between sweetness and bitterness, because I guess the technical opposite of sweetness is dryness. So when you put lactose and bitterness together, to me, it's like, you have like some custard and then swill it down with a macro lager, and it just tastes like you've just brushed your teeth. Yeah, but in terms of bad styles, probably milkshake IPA. I also don't love dark sour beers. I've had so many of them trying to change my mind, but I find, unless there's acetic involved and you get that kind of balsamic vibe, I find like really lactic dark beers very off-putting. I don't quite know why. That's just a personal opinion. It's probably not a bad style. It's just my own taste. Right, I'm aware that we've gone on longer than I said I would before we did the first of these Drink Jonny Dries. So I'm going to have two beers on the go, I think, just in case one beer is horrible. So let's just confirm the winner. Yeah, it's definitely Mystery Homebrew. So let me just dig that one out from the brew fridge. Okay. So this is the Mystery Homebrew bottle. You'll remember, I think, maybe it was in the video where we tasted our two Imperial Stouts, like the tops rubbed off. So we didn't know what they were exactly. And that's what's happened here. So I think, given the color of what's inside there, it's either going to be Brad's Breakfast, which was a coffee, cinnamon, vanilla pastry stout, or it's Wedding Cake, which was my Imperial Stout with Omnipollo, which was hazelnut, chocolate, vanilla, no lactose, or it's this is what I hope it is, but I don't think it is, or it's the Imperial Porter that we brewed on Big Brew Day in 2022, which is actually one of the best homebrews I've ever done. 3-hour boils, great on Imperial Porters. Got a lovely sweet finish. Let's find out. Oh, I should also say, so this is from Beer Hut Brewing, the original bottle of Marshmallow Stout. The was way too marshmallowy for me, but as a result, most people absolutely loved it. But here we go. Right. Okay, there's still fizz. There's still some fizz. So that's a good start first. Let's just quickly rinse this dunkel out. Okay, here we go. Thanks for the votes, folks, to start me off on the thing most likely to poison me because I made it. How much carb is there? Oh, not a lot of carb. Not a lot of carb at all. But there is some. There's bubbles getting to the top. Let's see the lacing. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's not in bad condition. The fact that there's no head on it at all. Oh, no, there is head growing, so it's coming out of suspension slowly. The fact they didn't have head to start with made me think it might be mine because the hazelnut has fats in that would damage head retention, but maybe not. Oh, no, okay. Immediately know what that is. That is Brad's one. Because it smells of really... Oh, God. No, it's definitely coffee. Really nutty coffee is what it smells of. We used a heavily roasted Brazilian bean, which was quite kind of hazelnutty. But no, that's too much hazelnut. I didn't get much hazelnut in my one, so that is definitely the coffee one. And there is some cinnamon there as well. It smells pretty good considering this has been in bottle for 2 years. Really nice. Well, it's not going to kill me. That's definitely a clean beer. I'm happy with that. It was 10.5% when I made it. It's definitely got lots of oxidation character. Loads of that kind of slightly sherry, red fruit. Yeah, I mean, sherry for days. And it's gone a little bit kind of oaky, which I find a lot of well-aged beers do. Sometimes it's really nice. It's really good in Fuller's Vintage Ale. Like, it goes almost like tequila fruity. It's really, really nice. Here, it dries the beer out, which you don't necessarily want when you've got loads of lactose in. It just sort of makes it feel a bit, well, just not as sweet as it should be given the rest of the flavors. Cinnamon comes through nicely, again, as it did in the original. And yeah, it smells a little bit metallic. So it has oxidized pretty badly, which is no surprise given my bottling method. But it's not bad. It's not bad at all. There's lots of comments rolling in, so I'm going to answer those. But before I do, I'm just going to set the next question up. Remove the mystery homebrew bottle, and hopefully now, if you go back into that link, there should be a round 2 up. for you to vote on the next one. If that's not the case, do let me know. But that should now be up so that you can vote on what my next beer will be. If you've got any homebrew questions about Imperial Stouts or anything, now's the time while I deconstruct this. It really does smell quite good until you... If you've got an oxidized beer, you can rub it on your palm like this. Yeah, and it smells like an old penny. So, yeah, pretty oxidized. But 2 years in bottle, it has no right to be that good as a homebrew, knowing what went in, what I did to make that beer happen. It was good fresh, but it has fallen off a cliff, but it is not too bad. Will it gush? It did not, did it? It did quite the opposite. So clearly it did reach its terminal gravity, which is always a concern with these beers, particularly the really big beers, because you worry that you haven't given it enough time. But we did. What did you think of Tea Leaf? Earl Grey type tea. Yeah, so Siren used to do a not green tea, Earl Grey tea beer with a Vermont strain. It was a really weird beer, but it was quite Moorish on cask. I think it's called Boston Tea Party. So yeah, New England Earl Grey sort of hazy pale. That was, yeah, you could only really have one. It wasn't very drinkable because of the tannins, the rich body, but it was quite good fun. Worst drink ever conceived, an Irish Revolt, 2 parts Baileys. I don't even know what Clamato is. Yeah, not sure. There are tomato gosas being released by a couple of breweries these days. I would quite like to try one. I feel like it's a solid... Is it a solid concept? It's a concept. It's a strong concept. And maybe it would be delicious. What link are you talking about? I should drop the link. I'm going to drop the link again. Sorry, folks. 1 second. Oh. That is the wrong link. So it's tinyurl.com/drink-Jonny-dry1, I believe. Yes, that is the case. So tinyurl.com/drink-Jonny-dry1. Cool. So that link is now in the comments, and I'm flashing it. Nope, that's how to buy our merchandise. But do take note of that one. So yeah, type in that link, and you will be able to vote on what my next beer will be. This will get smoother. I am learning. I am taking notes as to how this goes, and we will work out the best way of running this. In the meantime, I'm going to crack the next beer that anybody who bought the box will be drinking. This is Talk It Over. It is an NZ Pils, which is brewed by 2 of my favorite breweries. 2 of my, I should say, I don't want to be hyperbolic, 2 of my favorite sort of crispy but aromatic breweries. So they make stuff that you drink by the pint, but it's full and flavored and big and bold. And that's my favorite kind of beer. It's like pintable, but big. So this is Pacifica, Motueka, and German Blanc hops, brewed by McColl's with the wonderful Wild Horse in North Wales. And I have a lot of cases of it. They very kindly donated 2 free cases, which I kept rather than giving them to Brad or trying to sell them. So, Prost. You'll know I'm not going to finish this. Not because it's horrendous. It's actually okay, but because it's 10.5%, and the more rounds we can get through, the more empty my stash gets. So that's going in the trusty homebrew bucket. Spiders had a go at the bottom of that. I'm going to rinse that out. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to vote. I'm going to go through a couple more comments, and then we'll get on to round 2 of Drink Jonny Dry. Any questions about the book, about homebrewing, about the channel, about Keep Cask Alive, do hit me up. Heineken replaced the hops in Island's Edge Stout with tea leaves and jasmine. Did not know about that. That is wild. No, I'm not buffering. I'm just speechless. Tomato and clam juice. Beer? Surely not. What are a few good Czech pilsners you have tasted from the west side of the pond? So Notch, which we did a documentary about, fucking great brewery. The best Czech pils I've had outside of the Czech Republic. I had some great Czech style beers from Suarez. Some decent ones from Hill Farmstead. They were nowhere near the quality of Notch, but they were pretty good. We had a good one. The BA brought a really good one across. Damn, who brewed that? Who brewed that decent Czech pils? No, it's not going to come. It's not going to come. Those are the only ones that spring to mind. To be honest, because I haven't traveled to the US now since 2019, Czech Pils has really taken off over there since then, as it has kind of in the UK as well. So I think there are some brilliant Czech Pils that I've never tasted. I'm aware that Cohesion are making a lot of noise about their Czech Pils. They're certainly doing a lot of Luca pours, and that's always a good sign. Actually, I'll say that Omnipoyo have started doing Czech Pils, and they've done a pretty good job there as well. Oh, sorry, that's not on the West Coast. Sorry, in America, but it is outside of the Czech Republic. And what's the other Pils obsessed brewery? Can't remember, but I have had some really good ones, and I'm sure there's loads more that are great in America. What other questions have we got? Maybe pin the link. That's a good idea. Oh wait, can I pin it from here? Can you pin links on live shows? This is my professionalism showing through. Delete comment, put user in timeout, ban user. But I'm the user, so I don't want to do any of those. I'm not sure I can pin it. I'll try and do it on YouTube, the actual app, in a second. Perivale Brewery has a tomato ghoster coming out. Yeah, maybe I'll try and get hold of it. Yeah, the link is not clickable, Rasco. Sorry, that's why I tried to make a simpler link as possible. Or just type it. It's easy to remember. tinyurl.com/drink-johnny-dry-1. What's my favorite Norwegian beer? If you'd have asked me 5-6 years ago, I'd have said Tasty Juice or 3-bean stout from Lervig. I stand by 3-bean stout from Lervig. Still stunning beer. I know they still brew it, and they do some barrel aged versions as well. Do you know, I haven't drunk a huge amount of Norwegian beer of late. I went to Norway when I went to Svalbard, which is semi part of Norway, and I went via Oslo and stayed a night in Oslo. And I went to, I forget the name of the place. It was like it was owned by a brewery, but it had lots of guest beers on. And then it had like a couple of food venues in the building. So you could get like 3 or 4 different cuisines and beers from this brewery. But they were doing a fucking monkish tap takeover, which is cool. You know, I drank some nice monkish. But it meant they only had 2 or 3 of their own beers on. Where's my phone? I can probably find out what that venue was super quick. Because it was a really cool venue. If you're ever headed to Oslo, it was very cool. But yeah, I once went to Le Fine Mousse, like the famous Parisian craft beer bar, and they were doing a Colonel tap takeover, and I lived about 20 minutes from Colonel at the time, so that was super annoying. Brig Oslo, I think it was. Yeah, it was Brig Oslo. Really cool place, but a monkish tap takeover when I went. Ian, you're an animal. Stop it. What plans do I have for those mini oak barrels? Well, Andy, I did have a plan. Like I said earlier, they were going to be used. They were going to be used for the Now IPA, which I still want to do. Originally, it was going to be in September this year to mark 2 years since the documentary. And then I was like, well, if I do it by the end of the year, that's fine. And now it's going to be next year. And if I'm really honest with myself, because of Keep Cask Alive, which won't finish until the end of March, and then I'll have to brew it, it will probably be out next September. But I do actually have plans. Whereas when we recorded that advert, I don't think any of you are going to be surprised by the fact that I didn't actually have plans for any barrels. When is your next jaunt across the US? Some before January. No, sadly not. We are currently working basically, budgets are tight at the craft beer channel right now, and have been for basically since COVID. We are working on a deal to get over to the US late summer with a company, and as soon as we have confirmation that that's happening, we'll be able to say we're going to short term one very cool place, longer term hopefully 3 or 4 really fucking cool places. So bear with, and hopefully we will have some news on that maybe January, February time. Because I don't have enough glasses. Of course I have enough glasses. Why don't I just grab... Ooh. Well, yeah, why not? I have like a million of these. I don't know why I drank from the can when I have this. Right, I hope you've all had your votes, because once this is poured, I'm going to be trying beer number 2, which could be anything now, because Ian wasted his super chat. Right, let's have a look at the results. Yep, there we go. Okay. So we are next drinking, folks. Fuller's Vintage Ale. Okay, let's do it. I'm delighted that I'm drinking that. However, I was hoping that might happen a little bit later in the evening, so that I could fully enjoy it. Whereas now I'm going to feel really bad drinking an 8.5% beer. Right, where's the Vintage Ale? There you are. Oh God, there's been a collapse. Nope, we're fine. The hops in my fridge nearly all cascaded into where the bottles are. Right, okay. So, as you can see, this bottle has definitely seen better days. And as a result, the beer might have. So, yeah, this has been at the mercy of outside temperatures since I started filling that box, which would have been February or March time. So it's done the IPA journey. It's gone through the whole gamut of temperatures that it can. Let's see if there's any extra details on this. In this 2016 vintage ale, we've used Nelson Sauvin hops. A hop which was, sorry, the labels mostly disappeared. A hop which was being developed when we brewed our first vintage ale in 1997. Since then, this aromatic New World hop has pioneered new flavors in beer, and so is a something addition to this milestone vintage ale recipe. We have added a best before date of December 2026. So they put 10 years on their vintage ales. Well, cheers, guys. This is a very exciting moment, as all vintage ale cracks are. There you go, a bit of smoke on the opening. Right. Ooh, so it's pouring pretty hazy. Wow, wait, okay, that's interesting. So this was not stored vertical, as you'd have seen from that terrifying photo, but it has been vertical in the brew fridge for, well, I put it in yesterday afternoon, so for at least 24 hours. So it is apparently pretty hazy. Let's get rid of this. I'll just show for anybody that wasn't here earlier, this is the state of the overflow of my beer collection. So you can see the vintage ale up there on its side next to some other very tasty beers that deserve better. Right, let's have a go on this. Nelson Sauvin. I didn't remember that. Okay. So, jammy, tequila-y. And I'm going to say it. It's like green fruit pastel vibe, which I always get from Nelson. If I was coming to this blind, I wouldn't have guessed it was Nelson, because I'd have never have assumed that you'd have put Nelson in a vintage ale. But that character's definitely there. And it works really nicely with that kind of sharp, fruity... I don't know how to describe tequila as an aroma. Like, it's nutty, fruity... It's sharp, but it's rounded. It's just this weird... I don't know. If anybody's got any aroma notes for tequila, please help me here, because I cannot find them. It's a bit mentholy. It's gone a bit, yeah, bit mentholy, bit astringent. Yeah, this beer has not survived well. Really tequila-y and kind of boozy and a little burn there. So I've put that beer through that's definitely not the brewery, because I've had 2016s before and it's been beautiful. This is proof that you need to care for your beers properly. And by care for these beers properly, I mean cool, dark, consistent temperatures. So yeah, I could kind of tell when I poured it and it was murky as hell that was not what I was going to want it to be. Particularly when the hop is that. I mean, the hop aroma kind of survived. I don't know whether there's a little bit of a suggestion of, suggestion in there that made me think of green fruit pastels, which is what I associate with that hop. But that was not in good condition. That's a real shame. I wonder how much it sells for on the website and how much I've just poured away. Although, well, that beer was worth nothing by that point. Right, let's get round 3 up and we'll get voting. Let's remove that. So we're down to 7 choices. Hopefully that's now updated so you guys can go in and vote. The link is here. Feel free to keep asking me questions, sending me comments while we go through these. We'll give it 5 minutes and then we will get beer number 3 out of the stash. If they all continue to be not great, we might well get through more than 8. I'm up for it if you are. Oh, super chat. Hey, Johnny, I'm going to do a drinking tour through Europe next year. Would you or the chat recommend northern and southern Germany, finishing in Poland or Austria? Great questions. Exciting trip. Let's have a think about this. So I definitely would recommend southern Germany. Munich is a great beer drinking town, loaded with history, loaded with great breweries, great bars, modern and traditional. Also lots to do in Munich and lots to see. Northern Germany, Berlin's pretty cool. Hamburg's pretty cool, but Berlin's got a great beer scene as well, to be fair, but I would choose Munich over it. The other benefit to southern Germany is Bamberg, Franconia, all that kind of stuff. The other benefit to the north is obviously, well, depends where you are in the north, but Cologne and Düsseldorf for alt beer and Kolsch. Austria or Poland, 100% Poland. I mean, I haven't been to Poland, but I've tasted some incredible Polish craft beer. I've been to Poland many, many times when I was a violin playing nerd and used to play in some orchestras. And it's a beautiful, beautiful country full of beautiful architecture and cool things to do. And decent enough macro beer is what I was drinking back then. So, yeah, I would definitely do southern Germany and Poland. And if you can, get via Belgium and or Holland, depending on your routes. I hope that helped. People in the comments, please do weigh in. Folks, do not worry about your barley wines. If your vintage ales, but barley wines in general, they do age well, just not in a box outside in your garden. And I think we should have all known that. Yeah, cool, right? Everybody's weighing in. That's great. No cellar, drink way earlier than expected. Exactly. If you don't have a good way of storing these beers, don't go past their best befores, and probably don't go past a year, to be honest. That would be my advice. Tequila smells like agave, so what does agave smell like? Yeah, cool. All right, how are we doing on the votes for round 3? We've had 25 compared to last round when we had 42. Let's wait a teeny bit longer. Don't forget to get your votes in. tinyurl.com. Drink Johnny Dry 1 hyphenated. Currently, yeah, you guys are you're gluttons for punishment. Well, you're trying to put me through the mill, essentially, aren't you? Purple boxes in the photo are Robinson's coronation ales for King, whatever the fuck his name is, Charles the something. It's yeah, but I think Robinson's Coronation Ales are a bit like Chimay's Reserves, which is it's the same beer in a bigger bottle. So I don't think they're anything special, but they were sent to me, and they're in a box, and now they're in a bigger box, and they'll probably stay in that box. Right, okay. Let's go for it. We've had 30 votes now. I'm going to call 30 the threshold. And we are going to be drinking, because it's just going up and up and up, for North Coast Old Stock Ale. Oh, no, there's a late surge. There's a late surge happening. It's a late surge happening for Fox Leap, but I don't think it's going to get there. So let's get out the North Coast Old Stock Ale. Right. Is there any information on this bottle? So this has been in my stash for such a long time. This might even have been a purchase, a drunken purchase with remaining tokens at a Great British Beer Festival in 2014 or 2015. So stock ale, old ale. I mean, there might be people in the comments that know more than me about stock ale. It's one of those things that Americans talk about quite a bit, but it's not really a thing. We don't really talk about it in the UK. There's very few stock ales being brewed, except by people who are specifically historical brewers, people like Epoch. Epochal. So stock ales, old ales are essentially, I guess you compare them modern times to barley wines, but really what they were is like I talked about earlier, sort of the mild and the stale thing. Mild is very fresh beer. Stale was sort of older age beer where the Brett kicked in. It was more expensive. Sometimes you get a blend of the two. Sometimes you pick whichever one you wanted. And stock ales would have been the ones that you stocked for a long time, maybe ones that you did blend back with mild beer because it was just stock ale. That is off the top of my head, my rememberings of it from research that I've done, but I would love to hear in the comments if people know significantly more. Probably not from BJCP. They mostly know fuck all. Right, looks a lot like the vintage ale. Is this one going to be hazy as well? Yes, it is. So this one, similar situation, was vertical for 24 hours. I'm beginning to think that haze in an aged beer is a very bad sign. I'd certainly expect this beer to be crystal clear, given how long it's existed in its life. So yeah, I think it's a bad sign when it goes hazy again. Okay, so this. Wait. These two smell identical, other than this has the green fruit pastel thing. So I think this has got like tequila or even like menthol kind of vibes going on, menthol cigarette thing, plus sort of jammy, marmalade-y, caramelly stuff. Yes, Chris. Is Ashton still going? Because actually, me and Brad used to bond over watching him consume mad stuff. Like, he just on his sofa, you just see his hands, and he'd open stuff and then taste it and be like, bleh. Yeah, that's rancid. Like real menthol astringency. Not worth continuing with. I mean, I feel like there's the ghost of a good beer in this one. It's a little bit more palatable than the vintage ale. It's got like a kind of fruitcake, Christmas cake kind of vibe to it still, a nice spicy fruitiness, but man, it is not particularly drinkable. You know how some beers feel nourishing? You drink a great Czech Pilsner, frothy beer in a big cold glass with some food, and you feel like it's doing you good, even though it definitely isn't. This is like the opposite. I drink it, and I worry for my insides a little bit. So yeah, sadly, this one is also going in the bin. I mean, you guys are picking the wildest, the biggest beers, and I respect that. But that does mean we're probably having some of the less delicious stuff coming out. So, you get what you pay for, I guess. Let's get round 4 in the mix. And I'm not saying don't go for the mad stuff. I'm saying go for the mad stuff, because if I get to chuck all this stuff out, that's great. And know that my stash, every time we pick a terrible beer, my stash just gets better on average. Right, that should now be on. Please get voting on round 4 of Choose Your Own Adventure. Is there a pun there? Choose your own beer event and beer ale venture. Choose your own ale venture. Is there something there? This is why I need Brad. He'd know and he'd have something better. Right. Let's rinse this glass, have a sip of lovely New Zealand Pilsner, and move on with our lives. Right, let's look at the comments. Any questions, comments coming our way? I think I know what Rich wants me to drink. Where are we? Do you know what? Possibly Ian. But it's also probably going to be just because it's the youngest of them. Yeah, I think oh my God. Yeah, Ashens is still going. That is amazing. A collab I would love to do. I'd love to do an Ashens one. I'm not really sure how that would work if it's just our hands, if he's still doing that style as well. But I would love to do a Map Men collab, because I think like that the short that I started this live show with about the these are not my usual glasses and they're breaking my ears. Yeah, the one that I started with, the short with the history of King's Cross and St Pancras, like that's straight up Matt Men's. That's right down their avenue. And I do know Jay. He's very good friends with my best friend. So after that huge success I had with that video, I think I've got the confidence to go to my friend and go, hey, can you put me in touch with Jay? We might have like a beer London history episode we could possibly do together. I don't know if you guys follow Map Men. If you don't, they are absolutely hysterical and fascinating. And Jay is a lovely human, but exactly like his online persona. Right. We do love Brad. Yes, we do. This beer punishment game where Jonny has to try badly expired beer and react. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I expected this would be. Question: do record comments, review them later date. Sorry, you'll have to say that again. I can't quite work out what the question is. Does Brad get the bucket? I mean, he's not back for a couple of days, so it's going to be even worse by then. Have we hit the vote threshold? We have hit the vote threshold. Okay, so the next beer is going to be, unless you're really quick, folks, by voting on Allagash, we're going for Avery Brewing. Avery Brewing Vanilla Bean Stout. Which, oh, hello. Okay, it's happening. I'm going to give it a minute just to play out, see what happens. If there's one more vote for Fox Leap, then we've got a tie. Any advances? I'm glad that people are in for Map Men. Map Men. Do I record the comments and review them at a later date? No. I mean, so I don't record the ones that are on the live bit, but once the video is fully live, you can put comments underneath the video as a traditional one. If you're really keen, I get back to you and I've missed something. Or if there's a really specific comment I keep missing from you, post it now. I promise I'll get to it. Would love a Mapman collab, but think British styles based on county would be great. Thinking of stuff like London Porter and West Midlands Golden Mile, Scottish Wee Heavies. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like really good content, really interesting content to talk about the sort of the regional histories. One of the episodes for Keep Cask Alive is Yorkshire Stingo as well. It was a great thought. One of the Keep Cask Alives is actually a variation on that theme. It's how bitter varies from region to region. So it's trying to tackle this idea. Most of the episodes are talking about sort of tackling cliches about cask ale, and one of them is that it's all boring and brown. So we took bitter specifically, and we're making a documentary that shows basically as you travel through down England, bitter gets very different. So you could have it was going to be Black Sheep. Obviously, everything changed at Black Sheep. So basically, we go to like Timothy Taylor's, Batham's, Harvey's, Fuller's with their ESB, and just show that if it's boring brown beer, it's shades of brown. It's not just one great big blob of slightly brown beer. But yeah, we could do a more style related one as well. I'd love to do that, and hopefully people outside of the UK would really appreciate that as well. Right, let's get. Oh, sorry, I need to check the final result. Where are we? Oh, right. Okay. So people have come in and ensured that I'm drinking the vanilla bean stout. Let's get that out then. Where's that? There we go. So again, this one has seen significantly. Oh, sorry. I've still got the vote up. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, this label has seen better days as well. But Avery, oh no, here we go. I was going to say they don't put huge details on their bottles, but they do. So a double dose of vanilla derived from both fresh bourbon barrels. Wow, okay. And a trio of Tongan, Ugandan, and Mexican whole vanilla beans is complemented by essences of chocolate, caramel, and molasses to round out this luxuriously silky stout. Brewed with malted barley, malted wheat, specialty malted barley, oats, vanilla beans, hops, and yeast. If this was a fresh beer, as it was when I bought it, I'd be incredibly excited about this beer because I don't know whether I think we've talked about this on the channel before. I have very base tastes. I love ready salted crisps, margarita pizzas, Pilsner, and vanilla is my favorite flavor of ice cream. So yeah, I love vanilla, and I've got a good feeling about this one. Especially, it's been in barrel, it's had some oxidation, and they've, blended and adapted for that. But then it has been in bottle for a long. Holy crap! We might have our first winner here, folks. I just got absolutely hit by a waft of vanilla. Okay, it's looking pretty thin, though. It's looking like it's oxidized. Often when beers oxidize, they get thinner. If you look at like the stuff that's been dug out, like old Tom Hardy ales and things, they're really, really watery in appearance. But that smelled incredible. Oh, and that is a good thick frothy head. Well, it's not thick, but it is a good compared to all the others, which look kind of loose and a bit sad. This is a better looking head. Woof. Yes. Bourbon booze and vanilla and chocolate. Yeah, I mean, head retention is actually dissipating as I watch. Best aroma by a country mile of all of the beers. There is some kind of sherry, slightly acidic notes coming off, so it's faded, but it's still in pretty good nick. Man, that is a journey. So, first thing I'll say, this was brewed. So if this was released, I think it was 2016 that I bought this. I think it was the year that I moved in with my now wife, because I think I remember the day. Sorry, I bought it in 2016, so it's actually going to be older than the 2016 I put on the list thinking about it. But so this would have been brewed back before pastry stout was huge. So the first thing is it's still really dry and it's still light and bright and a little bit zippy, even though it's at, what are we, 10.7. Just feels like a very different beer to what we'd expect from a 10.7% beer today. It's also got thinner because of the oxidation, and there is that kind of tequila-y, oaky, sherry-like kind of tartness to it. But and it's got proper roast character as well. But so much bourbon, so much bourbon, coating the tongue, like splintering my tongue, and then loads of sweet vanilla. Vanilla, I don't think is famous for being an adjunct that lasts long in bottle, but it's held on really well here. And it could just be the character of the barrel that's left, and this would have been, absolutely loaded with vanilla, and maybe the last of the big vanilla thing that was sat there, and I cracked it and it all hit me, because that was like a full-on sensory experience when I cracked that bottle. But this is pretty good. It's a shame because it's not as good as I think it would have been fresh, which is going to be the case with probably all of these beers. We have to be honest. Something that we should know or understand about aging beer is that most of the time you're ruining the beer. If you go beyond that best before date, you're probably ruining it. And every now and then a beer is made that ages really well. Vintage ale, except for this monstrosity that's my fault, ages really well. Orval obviously ages really well. I think Westmalle Double does. I think Westmalle Triple doesn't. I think that Westphaletter 12 does. I think that St. Bernardus doesn't. It's better fresh. Mostly you ruin beer by aging it, and that's something I've learned the hard way and something I'm learning again tonight. But this is a decent beer. It just probably would have been better when it started. But yeah, like you say, Jen, bourbon, booze, and vanilla sounds delightful. It's nearly a decade old. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, but I'm not going to drink all of that. And I think we're having fun trying different beers. So I might finish this, and then we'll move on. I saw a question coming in. There it is. Never apologize for more questions. What made you stop using Untapped? I find it super helpful to keep track of beers I've had and locating good pubs, bars, tap rooms in unfamiliar locations. Nothing made me stop using it. I think the reason that I stopped using it is because most of the time, most of the drinking that I do is for the channel now, which is, obviously a privilege and a joy, but it's a bit of a weird situation in that, I'll drink for shoots, I'll drink for research. And usually during those times, I'm not thinking I need to untap. I need to check this in on Untapped. I'm busy filming, talking to people, researching, making like in-depth notes for writing or for videos. Because I mean, maybe it doesn't come across that way, but a fuck ton of planning goes into every video that we make on my side. Like a lot of research, a lot of thinking, a lot of tweaking. It's very rare for me to have a beer on the channel that I haven't already drunk, made notes on, and then brought to the table. So yeah, most of the time when I'm drinking, I don't have time, or it's not front of my mind to do an Untapped check-in. And on top of that, I worry that just doing the odd Untapped check-in is a bit of a waste of everybody's time. And I don't want people to sort of keep checking in on my Untapped to see what I've been drinking if it's an update every couple of weeks. So I've sort of stayed away from it. But equally, every time I want to recall a beer or remember when I had it or anything like that, I wish I had kept my Untapped up to date. And there's also, I mean, you guys, if you're on Instagram, he's probably come up on your feed because of the algorithm, but a guy called Beer with Alan. He's doing a fantastic job, like a really good communicator. Tells lots of different stories around the beers that he's drinking. Like, I really think he's really great at what he does, and he's grown as a result of that. But he's got this killer intro that is, without, like I say, without trying to take anything away from him, is a lot of the reason for his success, which is his opening is like, I'm Alan and I've drunk 2,700 beers. Which is just such a cool, solid opener to somebody that isn't in the beer industry and doesn't realize that, I've tried 10 times that at least, which is not something you should really boast about thinking about it, but most of that's through professional judging. It's just an incredible way to open your Instagrams and stuff like that. And I wish that maybe we'd been a bit more cynical and had an opening like that. Because what we're trying to do on the Craft Beer Channel at the moment is obviously make, I want our main channel to get more and more documentary focused, in-depth, ambitious stuff, beautifully shot. Because that's what both Brad and I enjoy making. It's also what we enjoy watching. It's also, I think, what we're best at. You guys may disagree and let me know if you do. So we want to do more of that stuff. But if we want to do that stuff, then we have to make sure that it's supported by lots of great social to drive the content there, because that stuff is not liked by the YouTube algorithm. So we need to find other ways to drive people to it. So we really need to work on like our Instagram presence. We need to have a TikTok. We haven't quit Twitter yet, even though we really should philosophically. And we're trying to develop our Facebook a bit more. So Untapped should be a way to do that. So I probably should start doing Untapped again. And I also wish I could sort of go onto Instagram and go, hi, I'm Jonny. I've tried 20,000 beers. And this is my opinion. So in answer to your question, nothing stopped me other than time and the situation in which I drink generally. So I would like to do it more. I'm not going to finish this because I just remembered what strength it is. But I am going to have a little bit more New Zealand Pilsner, and I'll get the vote open. There's a couple more questions coming in, so I'll just get round. What are we on to? Round 5 going. Just so as you knows, I'll be ending in 20 minutes. I'll end at 10, so I'm going to try and squeeze 2 more in, I reckon. So do bring in your questions if you've been holding it back for the end. Right, that is now ready. I hope you've got the link by now. If you haven't got the link, it is up right here. In fact, I don't think it's gone away since I last put it up. So apologies for that. Where are we? Comments. Where's the latest one? Oh, there we go. That's the latest one. What's my go-to supermarket beer? Craig, we're doing a live show in which I'm trying to drink through my stash. I don't really go to supermarkets to top up on it. There's only one beer I buy in supermarkets, and that is Spartan Helles, which, if you read my book, you will know is certainly the most important brewery. No, not certainly. Arguably the most important brewery in the history of humanity. Not so much in the things that they achieved, but in the things that they enabled. So, pale lager, the fridge, everything that Carlsberg did that genuinely changed the world. It's probably Carlsberg the most significant brewery in the history of the world. Spartan maybe second, and then Hofbräuhaus maybe third. But that's in Sainsbury's. It's 3 for $6. It's the best beer you can get for £2 in the supermarket. So when I run out of lager, I go there and I top up on that. Otherwise, it's the stash, or if we need something hoppy or crispy, we go to my local bottle shop and shop independent. But yeah, Spartan Helles, you can't say no to that at £2 a bottle. Rasco, has a similar situation to me. Between making all the content, Untapped is a bit tricky to sort of keep on top of. What is the least worst macro beer masquerading as craft? Great question. Least worst Macro beer masquerading as craft. Right, it's a more complicated question than I wanted it to be. I still regard macro beers as craft if the approach is right. If the simple definition of craft for the craft beer channel, Brad and I agreed on it and put a video out about it, is if it's a race to the top, not the bottom. So there's lots of macro breweries creating stuff that is trying to make the absolute best beer they can in the world. But in terms of people being a little bit cynical and trying to cash in, it's probably Camden Hells. I still think it's a great beer. When I have to drink it in places that have nothing else, it's usually pretty delicious. I think most of the other breweries that have been bought out in the UK now have gone to hell in terms of quality of the beer. And if you sold to Heineken, probably literally gone to hell. So I'd probably go with Camden Hells in terms of macros trying to look like they're a craft beer. Which actually leads to a question I saw from Rich Harper about the Sieber Indie Beer promo. So yeah, Sieber have clearly decided that the weight of macro beers trying to look like they're small independent businesses is too much and is affecting the business. I would argue Sieber's time and energy and money would be better spent on the lobbying stuff they do pretty well in trying to get, really they need to get a review into the beer tie. They need to focus on business rates for British breweries and bottle shops and pubs. I think that'd be a much better use of their time. If we can get more pubs, more profitable pubs, and fewer tied lines, that's the best thing you could do for the independent beer industry right now. But I also think that it is important that a conversation's had around independence as a result of the big breweries getting involved. They came to us and they asked us to back it and promote it, like a lot of different writers and broadcasters and influencers did. We said no. We didn't say no. We said, please provide more information, on the basis that our view on independence is that independence is a means to an end, not a goal. Independence is worthless if you don't do anything good with it. So we went back to them and said, that's great. Where's your code of conduct? And where is your code of conduct for the breweries that use the label, which people will be able to put on their cans if they meet the definition? And we got sent their code of conduct, which is great, but they didn't have a code of conduct for the breweries that can use the label. And as we all know from the Me Too movement in beer started by Brie Allen, being independent does not mean you are a good company, does not mean you have good people working for you, and does not mean that you have any fucking structure in place to ensure that you're using that independence to create ethical, fair business and safe spaces for your colleagues and for your customers. So we basically said, we can't support this right now. If you ever introduce a code of conduct for the independent breweries that they have to sign, we will back that with all our energy and all in good faith. But yeah, we genuinely believe that independence is irrelevant if you don't also have a code of conduct that you can put into play as a result. So our view on Sieber is not on Sieber. Sorry, Sieber is a powerful and important thing. Our view on the Sieber Indie Beer label is that really it should be an ethical label as well, and hopefully it will be. Right, where are we on the votes? Oh, it's getting tighter as we get fewer beers. So we've had 36. We've hit my self-imposed, completely out of my arse threshold. Oh, okay. Somebody's just voted and made it a tie. Oh, a three-way tie. Sorry, let's get this on screen and remove this comment. Oh, no. Okay, Yonder Loop has just taken the lead again, so I'm going to give one more minute now that people can see that it's a tie. No, okay. Looks like it's Loop, which I'm delighted about because you probably won't know, but I, during the pandemic, obviously struggled a bit for work. Couldn't go anywhere and take photos and make films and stuff. So Yonder were very, very kind. Stu, one of the founders, one of the loveliest humans in the beer industry, was looking for a social media manager and somebody to help streamline their web shop, which is part of what I used to do. before we took Craft Beer Channel full time, and he gave me a short-term contract. So we had lots of fun together, made lots of content, made some videos, and he was producing some absolutely beautiful beer, one of which, if I remember correctly, is this one. So let me grab this out. Where's it gone? Oh, God, it's right at the bottom. Oh, God. No, we're okay. Nearly had a can cascade there. Right, so this is Yonder's Loop. Loop is it's the best way of describing Loop. It's almost like a Solera system. So a Solera system is where you have sort of a mothership barrel that's full of a base wild ale with your house yeast in, and you every time you use a bit of it to start an inoculation or to blend into a beer. You then top it up with fresh wort, and so like sort of the beer never ends. Essentially, it's always the same family of yeast that's in there. It's always the same base beer that's in there, and you create essentially this kind of thread that you can trace through all of your beers that never changes. And that's what Loop was. I will say, with absolutely zero shade to the brewery, that they've very much stepped away from producing this kind of beer. They used to be full-on wild ale, exciting foraged ingredients, long aging of barrels and this kind of stuff. And I think they still do produce some of that, but their main focus now is sort of heavily fruited, if not pastry style, just like sort of smoothie style beers, which they make exceptionally well. And they're all still mixed firm beers. They're not sort of quick sours or anything. But yeah, this kind of beer is sadly, because it didn't sell very well, they weren't able to focus on it for financial reasons. But that's just the state we find ourselves in this industry at the moment, and why we should support ethical brands such as Yonder. Right. Big shout out to Stu. I love that man and I love his beers, and I'm hoping this is going to have survived from so he's put best before 2024. What year did I put on here? I can't even remember. 2021. Okay, so maybe he puts 3 years on these beers. Right, I'll dig into this and then I will dig into the comments again. Wow, yeah. Sorry, let's see if we've got any info on Sicily, which I believe is aniseedy. Local forage beer. A unique blend is aged on British raspberry and sweet Sicily, a forage herb with flavors of anise, which balance the acidity and dry finish whilst highlighting the sweetness of the fruit. So yeah, raspberry and aniseed. Loads and loads of raspberry still. Aniseed? There's something spicy there. It feels a bit greener than aniseed. Bit more oh, this is going to be so wanky. What's that herb? Chervil. If anybody's ever cooked with chervil, which is a bit aniseedy, but kind of somewhere between basil and aniseed. Well, basil's kind of aniseed. It's somewhere in that vein. Yeah, baby. Lots of lovely yogurty, lemony, lactic character. Bit less raspberry than I was expecting from the aroma. Really dry. I mean, given the mixed firm culture of this, the Brett and everything else in there will have been eating away at that flavor and that depth and that raspberryness, which is why I would say never really age heavily fruited beers, because the yeast just eventually kind of destroys that character. Even in lambics, I drink those fresh. I wouldn't age them. That's delicious at 3 years. That's the best beer we've had tonight by a country mile. I would finish that bottle this evening, and maybe I will. It's tasting really, really good. Really, really good. Which is great, because I'm slowly compiling a list of the entire stash, which after tonight will stand at, well, no, we won't have made a dent. It'll be over 400 beers still. Trying to make a spreadsheet, and maybe even, I mean, I can't put 400 beers up for a vote because you probably all vote for different things, but try to find a way to give people more choice. Like we might be able to go like, right, what style are we doing next? Imperial stout, and then I could pick out the whatever there will be, like 15, 20 Imperial stouts in that stash. It's going to be more than that. Right, let's dig into some questions. I know you enjoy the channel, and we do too, but do you drink beer now and think of content and curse yourself not for enjoying the beer chilled? Do you know what? No, I drink for pleasure, definitely. I don't drink a lot for pleasure. Like I'll have one beer of an evening, and it's usually a beer that I know and like, which is another reason why it's not on Untapped. But no, I really enjoy those beers, and it hasn't sort of ruined it for me. I would say what's a real shame is often on the channel we drink incredible rare beer, but we'll drink it on camera, and that's great, and we get to enjoy it even if we're working and we're thinking and we're trying to make it entertaining and informative. What's a real shame is then once we finish filming, we then go back and we film those slow-mo pours. And, I'm pouring it quite hard to get a nice frothy head. We're then swirling it to get that effect that we then put into the video, which means that by the time we might sit down, shoot done, and me and Brad will like have a chat, think about any B-roll we need to capture, have a little talk about how the edit will go, and then talk about other like craft beer channel business. We'll drink those beers, but they'll be well past their best. They'll be warm. Most of the carbonation is gone, and they're not tasting great. So we've literally killed a lot of whales by doing that, and that is a genuine regret. That's probably the only way that I sort of regret that element of it. No, there'll be more coming in, I believe. I think they're getting some draft in soon. It's a labor of love bringing Allagash into the UK, as I think Cloudwater learned as well, because like the wit and the IPA sell really, really, really fast, and then you're sat on a bunch of exciting but slow-moving beers on your shelf. Allagash will only want to sell you the wit if they're getting the expensive stuff that's, they earn a really good profit from. It gets Beer Geeks talking. It's good marketing for them. But then beer merchants can't buy more because they're still sat on the old stock. So they're always caught in this catch-22 of like, we need to keep the momentum going and keep people knowing that they can get hold of these beers, but equally we have to get through the other beers before we can make the order again. And then also Allagash, particularly a brewery that is in constant demand for their beers, will have allocations that they'll be giving. So they'll be, it's taken, because when I was at Cave Direct in 2015, we were begging Allagash for beer, and they were like, nope, we don't have any beer left. And now that they're at the state where they can sell beer abroad, it will be like, well, England's had their allocation now and it's gone, and the next batch of all these beers are going to probably Italy or Scandinavia or Canada. So yeah, it's not really up to beer merchants. They have to sort of be at the mercy of the breweries that are producing these beers and how they need to serve all of their customers fairly. So I'm fairly confident there will be more Allagash coming. But it'll be a while until that happens. And I think increasingly beer merchants are trying to, or I should say Cave Direct are trying to bring in other New England breweries at the same time. So there's a lot of centralization of the beers before they come, and making sure that, Trillium have enough and the right stuff at the same time as Allagash. I mean, this is, it's all the boring stuff that beer geeks don't want to hear about, but that's the reason why a lot of these beers are so hard to get hold of, because there is so many moving parts just to getting a pallet of Allagash White into the UK. So yeah, that's probably why. Hopefully there's more coming. No, it won't be. Not until I have space. Like literally, there is no cold storage space in my house anymore. That's why I'm doing this. I have two massive fridges dedicated to beer that are completely full. That is the overspill, and I need to get through that. And once I'm through that, and indeed ahead of any other things that are being sent to me, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get it only into the fridges. So until then, #stop beer abuse will have to be used. What's my take on British brown ale? I don't really have a take on British brown ale. I wish it was more of a thing, but equally, I don't really drink it. I'd rather have a bitter that would have a bit more hop character and a bit more yeast character. I also think that most British brown ales probably aren't made with brown malt as well, so they end up just being bitters, really. I'm not aware of anybody really making a British brown. Let me know if there are any good ones out there so I can be corrected or correct myself. Oh, sorry, super chat. I missed. Brad's usually super hot on this. Heard you trash Heineken a few times over the years. Can you briefly summarize why they're so awful? So, if you go onto Google Heineken Africa Guardian, and what you'll come across is an article that explains I don't know whether I still have to say alleged abuses of power and people and markets in several parts of Africa. But a Dutch journalist wrote an entire book on it, syndicated out quite a lot of the stories to give it a bit more heft and a bit more press notice. But if you read what that journalist uncovered, you'll never want to drink Heineken again. Like properly horrific things. And so we very early on in Craft Beer Channel decided not to really touch Heineken, and we've softened on that in terms of tasting them in blind taste tests and things, because we felt that, you know, by doing that, we're not necessarily promoting their products, although we did end up promoting them because it was a blind taste test and I voted it the best. But I did explain in that video the context for it. And I was keen that while I was doing a blind taste test of lagers, it was blind enough that I wasn't going either excluding Heineken or indeed, I don't know, asking somebody to point out which one's the Heineken so I can trash it. Like, I wanted it to be honest. If Heineken's the best beer, great. That's another way to have a conversation about what a shame it is that they feel like they have to do business in this way and ruin people's lives. You know, that said, also I've received awards up here that are sponsored by Heineken, and you know, there's not a lot you can do with that, particularly when, you know, that represents quite a lot of my income. Those awards, you know, they're incredibly important to beer writers, the annual British Guild of Beer Writers Awards. So I'm completely conflicted and completely not innocent when it comes to all of this, but we try not to support Heineken for the reasons that are in that book, and I wouldn't want to do those people's stories injustice by trying to recount them here, but you'll find it very easily on the Guardian website, sort of a really good summary of what that journalist found. Thank you so much for the super chat, by the way, as well. The most serious super chat I think we've ever had, but I'm here for that. Right. What other questions do we have? I'm going to do one. Am I going to do one more? Yeah, I'm going to do one more. So stick around. I'm just going to get round 6 going. And once we've got round 6 going, I'm going to take some last questions, and then we're going to call it a night. Whee! Right, what am I deleting? Loop. Whoa, what a lineup for the final 3. 3 beers I'm very excited to try, whichever one it is. So that's cool. Can you do a one-off stash box for Patreon once a year? Tell me what the stash box is. It's what? So I'd post out. No, wait, that doesn't work because I've only got one bottle of most of these. You want, like, I could collate beer, like some amazing beers that would be good for a stash, and then sell it to you folk? Or tell me more, Andy. Tell me more. Any chance of US book signing? Slim. If we can get the deal off the ground to get to the States, I will try to do some events around the book and some signings. Unfortunately, like, my publisher won't pay for me to come over to the US and do book signings for the simple reason that they never make the money back. We never make the money for the flights, hotels, beers, foods. That's just the state of the publishing industry. Like, I mean, what I showed you at the start, where's my ranking? 184 in all books on Amazon, right? that's based off of me selling less than 100 books a day. That's how small the publishing industry has. Well, it's not even how small the publishing industry. Publishing industry has shrunk incredibly, but it's got very polarized. So the people at the very top are selling, the Jamie Olivers. I know the man; he's a wonderful man, but he's like a black hole for sales. Like every cookbook is a Jamie Oliver cookbook that sells. That's what's happened in fiction, non-fiction, food, crime, beer, everything. Just the big sellers always sell. So yeah, there's just not a lot of money in events really for publishers, sadly. But if I do get to the States for other reasons, then 100% I will, bring books to sign, or indeed sign books that people have. Brad and I have always, every time we try to organize events in every city that we go to, and it's a bit tricky because you don't know that the word's getting out to the right people. So we've done events in towns all over the world and had like 2 or 3 people turn up, and it's very cool to hang out with those people. But it's it's a huge amount of effort to meet 2 or 3 people, and we can't seem to get the word out properly. But if we end up in New York, LA, San Francisco, or something, we could definitely put a cool event together and get people down. Grant is a publisher and he supports this message. Yes, it is. It's been a real, because I've had 3 small publishers before The Meaning of Beer, which is a very, well, not a very big publisher. It's Atlantic. It's a big publisher, and this is an imprint of HarperCollins in the US. So big publishers, and it's been a real education to see that even at the top end, for a small author like me to break through is incredibly difficult, which is why I'm very, very proud of how far we've come on Amazon, and we've sold about 4,500 into the independent bookseller trade, which is very exciting. And hopefully, so that's sales from the publisher to the bookshop. So they're not sold as yet to the public, but hopefully they will. Yeah, somebody's talking about. So yeah, you can, if you want a signed copy, if you haven't bought the book already. So I've lost a comment of somebody asking, but you can get signed copies from my local bookshop, David's in Letchworth. Shout out to David's and Amber. Thank you for everything you've done. They have sold over 100 books for me already, which is incredible for a small bookshop. They are shipping signed copies all around the world. Shipping to the US, I think, is like about $25. It's not cheap, but also the book from the UK is a little bit cheaper. So you're not saving money, but you do get it signed. Right, let's look at the vote. Let's get this last beer in the glass, and then I'll take the final questions. Bellwood's Barn Owl by a country mile. Where was the support for the Allagash? Fine. So, this is a beer I have nearly opened so many times because the reputation of Bellwoods is fantastic. There's a documentary on them. I think it was Vice or Munchies that did it. That's great. And it's one of those beers where I'm like, I feel like I need a good occasion, but equally it's a very drinkable style. And it's a Brett IPA. Remember when Brett IPAs were a thing? With apricots. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to play out. So it's an IPA, so it should be drunk fresh, but it's a Brett IPA, so it doesn't need to be. It's a wild ale, so you can age it, but it's got apricots in, so I wouldn't age it. So I have got no idea at all how this one's going to play out. Still smoking on the open. Ooh, oh no, too close for the focus. Simon wouldn't make such amateur mistakes when showing smoky openings. Right. Still looks lovely and pale, so that's a good start. Beautiful head. Gentle haze. All the visual signs are good. Loads of Brett just wafted past me. It's trying to climb out the glass. It's still growing. What a stunning looking beer. I cannot believe. I mean, this has been in my stash since pre-COVID, so it's at least 4 years old. It's got a slight stalky greenness, tomato vine greenness, loads of Bretty pineapple and barnyard. Not huge amounts of apricot. I think the Brett will eat anything, and it's eaten the aroma of it's oh wow, it's a 1.5 finger head. Oh, now it's a 3 finger head. That is nearly fucking amazing. Again, I bet fresh. That was very special indeed. So it's got that tomato vine thing, which is a bit weird. Definitely an aging artifact. Loads of like funky Brett, but not like really gnarly funky Brett. Just like a very clean barnyard. The apricot is there on the palate. It's got this jammy, peachy, fleshy thing, but the Brett has clearly eaten like the sweet sharpness, fleshy fruitiness of the beer. So that real character of apricot is there at the start, but it dies completely and becomes really dry. So that, I mean, that is, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that's an 8 out of 10 beer, even now. And I reckon if that was fresh, that would have been a 10 out of 10. Well, maybe not even fresh, maybe a year old, given the Brett some decent time. I'm absolutely delighted we've cracked that last, because when this live show finishes, I've got a beer to go inside and refresh the Amazon page to see if I'm going to hit the top 100 on Amazon. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not even joking. I've got that beer to go in with and drink, and it's absolutely brilliant. And that's my first Bellwood Brewery beer, which probably shocks a lot of people. It's absolutely world class, and that's very exciting. And we do need to visit them or get some more beers from them, because everything I've heard from them has been like, these guys are absolute gods of many different styles, and this would point to that being the case. Stunning beer. Right, let's dig into the comments for one last time. Most of you are talking about fingers. Seems to be some love for Bellwoods. Yes, everyone was furious about that. Surely anybody is happy about it. Well, nobody is. I don't think there are anybody, even the salespeople, because I'm sure it hasn't worked. Oh, there aren't actually any questions at all. People worrying about drinking Heineken now. Yeah. 2 fridges of beer needing to be drunk at Jonny's. When are we going to get the invite? Friends, I would love to have you. But the studio is, well, Brad doesn't like filming in it because it's too small for me and Brad, if we're honest. We have a very wide angle lens. I can show you. Oh, actually, well, I can't. I mean, you can see that my hand gets bigger and bigger as it comes to the edge. This is what we're shooting on. So this is 16. If you know about cameras, we're at 16 on a full frame camera. So it's a small space. You know, I can touch the front and the back. Oh, I'm about 6 inches short. It's not a big brewery. Big studio. So you wouldn't all fit. But we have Love and Beer Festival. I'm fairly confident that it's going to happen again next year. And maybe there's something to be said for like a like a Jonny's stash stand where you, I don't know, maybe it could be the charity thing next year. But I keep meaning to announce at Love and Beer Festival this year, we did our tombola, organised mostly by Malt Miller. Big shout out to them. But so we did this tombola where you pay £2 for a ticket and you could potentially win a prize. We raised £1,008 for Cancer Research UK, which is an incredible figure and absolutely amazing. And I keep forgetting to shout about it. I mean, it's not really about shouting about the money we raised, but I want to say thank you to you folk for raising that amount of money. Some people were incredibly generous. But maybe next year the charity angle could be I could just bring the stash and it'll be a tombola from Jonny's stash and you pay £2 per line and you could win mystery homebrew. There's other mystery homebrews in there, my friends. Or something that's aged horribly, or something that doesn't really seem to have aged a day. Or something that was meant to age and has done rather nicely. So maybe that's an idea for next year. Maybe that's or a stash beer auction. I've got some pretty special beers in there, which I didn't put into this one because I didn't know how it was going to work yet. But I've got, I've got a 2015 Bourbon County Stout. So the last year that they didn't pasteurize it. So I have no idea what to do with that beer because it's also one of my favorite beers in the world. And I don't know what to do with that beer. Maybe drinking it on a live show is a silly idea because I might not finish it. I've got a 2010 vintage ale, which probably is in a fridge because I want to keep that one right. I think I've got a 1997 vintage ale somewhere. They gave us one, but we might have done a shoot with it. No, I think I do have one. I think I've got a 1997 vintage ale. Lots of very, very special things that could make a great auction or could make some very, very clickable live shows. I can't see what the answer was to the Patreon one, but I'm open to ideas for sure. Right. That is about all I've got time for tonight, I'm afraid. I would love to hear just in the last couple of minutes if you thought that this worked, or you can go to the Discord forum on our Patreon and you can let me know if you thought this worked, any tweaks that you'd make. I think there's strength to this. I think maybe a show that's entirely dedicated to it, with Brad either watching from afar or being part of it, tasting the beers and us talking about it, could be a lot of fun as well. I think hopefully it's educational and it's interesting. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I've got a beautiful beer to finish the night drinking. All I have to say is, firstly, a huge, huge thank you to all of you for buying the book, for supporting the book, for watching the content that we've done promoting the book. And say also thank you for sticking with us while Brad isn't around. So appreciate. Glad you enjoyed the Mark Dredge podcast yesterday. I thought he was great. We've got our filming day for our Christmas content. We've got one more video promoting the book, and then we're on to Christmas content. And then next year we've got Keep Cask Alive, which is going to be easily the biggest project we've ever taken on. It's been absolutely mammoth. 6 half-hour episodes, all on very specific niche things, loads and loads of travel. And hopefully by the time the video series finishes, we will at least have the government backing our UNESCO campaign. Things are in the works. So it could be a very exciting time to be with the Craft Beer Channel. I'm going to go away, think about how all this went, think about this beautiful beer, and we'll get back to you with another date for a Drink Jonny Dry, hopefully with Brad involved. Otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend. If you haven't bought the beer yet, you can buy it here with this very catchy link. Just go to Amazon or David's Bookstore, Letchworth, if you want a signed copy. Just put David's Bookshop, Letchworth, and you can buy it. Otherwise, love and beer. And I'll see you on Wednesday for a video about how Guinness changed advertising, and hopefully on Friday for a podcast with the man Brad himself. Love and beer, guys.